So in our previous regular classes, we have spoke about aircraft propulsion unit, which was covering the within atmosphere vehicle. They are nothing but our aircraft vehicles. In that we have spoke about different kind of engines, how they are operating, and which are the different components, and how they will be acting, and what are the performance in altitude, different altitude, and all we have spoke and we have discussed also. So currently now in this video lecturing, I try to cover rest of the syllabus which was left, that is from the 5th unit, that is about rockets. So in this class we will speak about rockets. Okay. So now we know the difference between aerospace and aeronautical. Is that no? Right. So the difference between these two is, again I will tell you, aeronautic means we'll study about the engines, aircrafts and different vehicles which will operate within the Earth atmosphere. And aerospace means here we are going to study about those engines or those vehicles which will operate beyond our Earth atmosphere. So our rockets will come in second category, that is aerospace category. Okay, because this will not be used in Earth atmosphere. This will be using beyond the Earth atmosphere. So when I say rocket, there are two different, many different types of rockets are there. We can say types of rockets based on their fuel usage and the oxidizer usage. They are going to classify. So which are those? So particularly we can say solid propellant rockets, and second, liquid propellant rockets, and third, hybrid propellant rockets. So these are the three different types of rockets we are using, basically based on the fuel usage what they are going to use. So now we will see one by one and we will see some of the basics which are there in our particular syllabus. So first, when I say solid propellant rocket, before going to that, we should know that aircraft engines will use atmospheric air, right? But here rockets will never use atmospheric air. Okay, this is not usable. So that is the reason we call these rockets as non-air breathing engines. So here, without atmospheric air, then how the combustion will take place? How the engine will work then? We need oxygen, right? To make a combustion means we need both fuel and oxygen. Yes or no? So that is the reason, instead of using atmospheric air or oxygen from the atmospheric air, here especially the different separate oxidizer will be there, which will be combining with fuel. So these two things will be separately carried by the rockets in order to work. So now we will see one by one how the working principle of these three different rockets right now. So first we will see how a solid propellant rocket looks like. Solid propellant rocket. So just we will rush through the things because we don't have enough time. So basically the rocket will look like this. which will be having a chamber, and inside one space will be there, small space, and here one igniter will be there. So all this space is filled with fuel and oxidizer. Okay, so this is nothing but igniter, which will ignite the fuel and oxidizer mixture, and this is propellant. It is a combination of both, that is fuel and oxygen, and this is nozzle. So what happens? Initially, this fuel and oxidizer, whatever it is there, sorry, it's not oxygen, it is oxidizer. What happens initially, the both fuel and oxidizers are mixed together and kept inside the rocket. And then what will happen? This igniter will be ignited. Once the igniter will ignite, the propellant starts burning. And then as propellant starts burning, what will happen? As we know that in aircraft engine, the hot gas will go out through the nozzle with high velocity. Similarly, here also the hot gas which is coming out through the nozzle will go with high velocity, which will be producing the thrust required for the rocket engine to move forward direction. So now here the combustion will be taking place, not here and there, but continuously it will be taking place. Let us say here it is combustion is happening, then again next it will start here, next it will start here. Okay, so like this the propellant will burn and thrust will be produced. So here some limitations are there. What are those limitations? Here you cannot switch off and switch on your rocket engine whenever you want. That is not possible unless and until you made a pre-programmed one. That means you are going to program it by putting some plates here and some plates here, which will hold the combustion. Okay, which will stop at a particular time. For example, you allow your solid propellant to burn for 5 seconds, then stop it. It is pre-programmed one. Then what will happen? It will stop it here at particular time only. Then again you are supposed to reignite it. Okay, so these are the one challenge for solid propellant rocket engine, and it cannot travel for more distance, like from Earth to Moon. It is not possible. So this can be used in missiles. Okay, this can be used in missiles. So this is the simple working principle of solid propellant rocket engine. So now we'll talk about liquid propellant rocket engine. So now we will speak about the working principle of liquid propellant rocket engine. So when I say liquid propellant rocket engine, the name itself will say as liquid fuel will be there inside and liquid oxidizer will be there. It will not be in the form of solid, but it will be in the form of liquid. Okay, so like this we can say, for example, here one fuel tank is there. Okay, I will just draw the simple diagram, and here one more fuel tank will be there. And here nozzle is there. So here one pressurized tank may be there. Pressurized yes. So here let us say fuel and oxidizer. and these two are connected. So this is a simple diagram for, or we can say, just to understand how it looks and what is the working principle. So let us assume that we have got some three tanks, different tanks, one for fuel, one for oxidizer, which both are in liquid form, and here one pressurized gas is there. So what will happen? This pressurized gas will pass through these two tanks. So due to that, what will happen? Here the pressure is created. Here the pressure is created. So due to that pressure, what will happen? It starts flowing down. These two starts flowing down and come and mix in the combustion chamber. Okay, they will come and mix in the combustion chamber where combustion takes place. At that time, the hot expanded gas is produced, which can be sent through the nozzle with high velocity. So which will give the thrust for your rocket engine. Okay, so that your rocket can move further. So now, whenever this fuel and oxidizer come into contact with each other, automatically they will ignite because they are readily ignitable substances. So the mixture of this fuel and oxidizer in the combustion chamber is called as hypergolic mixture. Hypergolic mixture. Okay, so this is how the working principle of liquid propellant rocket engine is there. And in this also there are two different types are there. One is pressure feed system liquid propellant, pressure feed liquid propellant rocket engine, liquid propellant rocket engines, and second one turbo pump feed liquid propellant rocket engines. So whatever I have shown you in this diagram, there is nothing but here pressure feed, where we have got a tank which is having the pressurized gas. But another type is what? Turbo pump feed. That means what? Here pressurized gas will not be there in that rocket engine. Instead, you will be having one turbine in it here, which will be rotating and pumping these two fuel and oxidizer. So that is the reason we can call that as a turbo pump. So here the pumping will happen, that will create pressure in the fuel and oxidizer. Okay, so after that pumping, these two starts, that is fuel and oxidizer, starts flowing towards the combustion chamber. They will mix there and combustion takes place. Okay, so this is about turbo pump feed liquid propellant rocket engine. So then what are the limitations here? So limitations is what? This is very complicated in structure. Okay, so many valves will be there and so many pipes will be there. So this is the limitation. And second thing is, you should take care in such a way that it should never freeze. Either fuel or oxidizer, it should not get frozen up. Otherwise what will happen? It will not flow. Yes or no? It will not flow. It will stuck somewhere. Once the supply of your fuel or oxidizer stops, what will happen? There is no combustion. That means engine will shut off. So that is the reason we have to maintain the regular flow. And second thing, we should avoid the corrosion or oxidation. So because so many pipes are there, it may get corroded or it may get oxidized due to the fuel and oxidizer, because of the reaction between those particular pipes and the fuel or oxidizer. So we need to select such a materials so that it should not get corroded easily or it should not get oxidized easily. So these are the limitations are there. Apart from this, the advantages as well as one more is there, it will weigh more. The weight will be very high compared to a solid propellant rocket engine. The weight for this is very high. Okay, and advantage is what? Whenever you want, you can switch off the engine or switch on. It is based on your needs, according to your needs. Okay, so now that is one more advantage. And another one is what? it can travel for longer distances. You can go for Earth to Moon, Earth to Mars, wherever you want. So that is why this kind of liquid propellant rocket engines are used. And last one is there, that is hybrid rocket engine. Hybrid rocket engine is there. So as name says, hybrid means it is a combination of fuel and oxidizer. That's it. So hybrid, how it looks, for just a schematic diagram, I will draw. One pressurized gas tank will be there like this. Pressurized gas tank, and from here it is connected to one fuel tank. One fuel tank or oxidizer tank, we can say. Oxidizer tank is there, and again it is now here it is connected to solid fuel, similar to your solid propellant rocket engine. So here solid fuel. Basically it is a combination of both. What will happen here? The pressurized gas is there, okay? It is allowed to move to oxidizer, where it will create pressure here. Due to the pressure, this liquid oxidizer starts moving towards solid fuel, and here it will come and mix with solid fuel, and your igniter will be there. It will ignite these two mixtures. Due to that, the hot gas is produced and sent out through the nozzle. Okay, sent out through the nozzle. So this is the combination of liquid oxidizer and solid fuel. So that is the reason we call this as hybrid propellant rocket engine. So in brief, I told you about which are the different types of rocket engines and how they are used. So that we have seen now. Now we will jump into next topics, that is boosters. So now after this working principle of different rockets, we'll talk about some 2 minutes about a booster. What is this booster actually? We know that already booster means which will boost. Everybody knows that. Okay. Okay. Coming to our technical term, we can say that our rocket engines already they have got different stages. Okay. First stage, second stage, third stage, and fourth stage. So let us assume that our rocket looks like this. Our rocket look like this, and here some additional thrust devices are there. Okay. So this is stage 4, stage 3, stage 2, and finally this is stage 1. So basically the Apollo has got 4 stages. Okay, I'm taking the same example. So here some 4 stages are there. So if I want to lift the whole rocket, okay, if I want to lift the whole rocket, it is very difficult to use only the thrusters rocket. For that, what we want, we need additional energy or additional power we require, or additional thrust we require. So due to that, we are adding some additional thrust devices around the main rocket. Okay, which will give us the more boost or more energy to lift off the rocket from the ground. So now These additional thrust devices are called as boosters. Okay, these are called as boosters, which will help the rocket to take off. Okay, and every time the rocket is made up of different stages. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So basically the last stage, the 4, will be having the payload. So it may be satellite, or it may be some other instrument which you want to keep in the space or some orbits, or if you want to send it to some moon or some other planet, it will be here at the top, at the end. So after that, here some guidance systems will be there. Okay, so like this. So what will happen? When this starts moving up till some certain distance, the 4th stage will work. Okay, to take off initially, along with some boosters. After that, what will happen? After reaching certain time or some certain distance, it will deploy, and it will go into the Earth, or it will just dispatch or detach from the rocket and fall. So then what will happen? Next stage will ignite. Next stage will ignite, and further it will carry the rocket engine further. So similarly, last one is stage 3, another one that will ignite, and its the time comes. Then it will push further, and finally it will also get detached from the rocket and fall. And last one is last stage, which is having the payload. It will ignite and move further. Okay, so these are the different stages for our rocket engines, as well as the additional thrust devices are attached to the main rocket. They are called as boosters. Okay, why that is required? To provide enough thrust or enough energy or enough power to the rocket engine to lift up and go further. Okay, so they are nothing but we call them as boosters, and this is the staging. There are some beautiful videos are there in Google. If you can search it, and YouTube also is available. Some beautiful videos are there. You can just go there and watch whenever you are getting free time. So next is like what we say, like missiles. There are so many missiles are there. Missiles are nothing but one kind of rocket engines. Okay, rocket motor engines. Basically, these will use solid propellant rockets inside them. So here also there is no atmospheric air, but instead oxidizer and fuel will be mixed together and can be used to the movement of the missiles. There are so many different types of missiles are there, like surface to air missile, air to air missile, air to surface missile, sea to air or air to sea. Okay, land to land missiles are there. So like this, many different missiles are there. For example, we have got Agni missile, and BrahMos is there. And recently, the people in US, they are testing one missile which is 17 times more powerful than our speed of sound. This is a recent update. It is there. Okay, so these missiles also will be using the rocket technology, basically for solid propellant rocket engine. They will use inside them. And one more is there, anti-satellite missile. Anti-satellite missile. What is this anti-satellite missile? The missile which will blast or which will target the satellite. Let us say in our India, some other country satellite is focusing. Then we can launch this missile and destroy that satellite. So that is called as anti-satellite missile. And our India also has tested these missiles recently. Okay, so this is about missiles. Then retro rockets. What is retro rocket? Retro rockets. I think you might have heard this name. Retro rockets are those which can be used to control the speed of the main rocket engine. Okay, or else these rockets will be used to decelerate the main rocket speed. For example, assume that your rocket is heading in this direction, okay, heading in this direction, which is having the high speed. Then what I want to reduce the speed. Okay, here the thrust is getting produced. Okay, this thrust is getting produced and it is moving in this direction. So what I can use is, I can do that. I can launch one more rocket opposite to that. That means one rocket will come here from this head. Okay, like this small rocket, which is attached to the head of this main rocket, and also it will start producing certain amount of energy, a certain amount of thrust. So due to this thrust, it is pushing it back, it is holding it back. Okay, so that due to this, the speed of this main rocket can be controlled or decelerated. So, and this rocket is called as retro rockets. And these rockets basically used for while landing on the planets, or if you want to enter into the trajectory of that planet. Okay, otherwise what will happen? With high speed it will cross and go. Yes or no? While landing it will make a problem. So that time they can use the retro rocket and slow down the main rocket and ask it to land or enter into the trajectory. So that is about retro rockets. And then next we'll see some topic that is attitude. Attitude. What is the meaning of attitude? We all know very well. Right, yes or no? So right attitude, right person. Wrong attitude, wrong person. That's for your understanding. So basically in our technical term, attitude means orientation. Okay. For example, I want to place my satellite, okay, facing towards the Earth. That means you should face your camera of the satellite towards Earth, right? If your aim is to take the pictures of the Earth, but your camera is somewhere else, or turned towards sun, then what is the purpose here? Your purpose has gone wrong. So that is the reason it is compulsory, or it is must or should, we have to maintain the proper orientation of the satellites. Okay, in order to reach the goal or aim. So keeping those in particular orientation is called as attitude of the satellite. So to do that, we have to control the attitude of the satellite in order to gain or in order to achieve our targets. Okay. Basically, attitude means maintaining the orientation properly of the satellites. Next, we will speak about another. Some definitions are there. Okay. We spoke about salt propellant, liquid propellant, hybrid propellant, and next is cryogenic engine is one more word. Okay, that is called as cryogenic engine. This is also one type of rocket engine. Cryogenic engine. So basically what it means, cryogenic engine is, it is a rocket engine which will use cryogenic fuel and oxidizer. That's it. Okay. So cryogenic fuel and oxidizer. That means what is the cryogenic fuel and oxidizer? So they are one kind of fuel and oxidizers which can be used at low temperatures. That means it will not get frozen up easily. I said no before, like if you want to maintain the proper flow of your fuel and oxidizer, we must see that it should not get frozen up. We have to make some arrangements to do that. Okay, but there are some fuel and oxidizers are there which will not get frozen up easily. That means they are capable of working at very low temperatures. And those kind of fuel and oxidizers are called as cryogenic fuel and oxidizers. And which rocket is using this cryogenic fuel and oxidizer is called as cryogenic rocket engine. So that is about cryogenic rocket engine. So now we spoke about different types of rocket engines, what is attitude control, and what is booster, and what is satellite, and what is anti-satellite, and what is retro rocket we spoke of. So now we will see some types of orbits. Okay, some types of orbits, or we can just write them, types of orbits. So one is straight, that is low Earth orbit. We can call this as LEO. And one more, medium Earth orbit. MEO. And then geosynchronous orbit. Geosynchronous orbit, that is called as GSO. Next is geostationary orbit. And that is called as GEO. And another one is polar orbit. And next, sixth one is sun synchronous orbit. SSO. Last one, highly elliptical orbit. Highly elliptical orbit. So students, we know that satellites are kept in different orbits. Yes or no? Based on their applications, what they are using. So based on that, people have divided the orbits into many types. One is low Earth orbit, second one is medium Earth orbit, third one is geosynchronous orbit, fourth one is geostationary orbit, fifth one is polar orbit, and sixth one is sun synchronous orbit, and seventh one is highly elliptical orbit. So all these orbits have got certain or some speciality that we will see one by one. The first one, low Earth orbit. So low Earth orbit is commonly used for communication, okay, and remote sensing satellite systems. It is used for communication purpose. Like we know that we will be using the phone calls and other things, texting and everything will be there. So for that purpose, we will be using it, as well as this can be used for International Space Station. This can be used for International Space Station, like your airport. There also we have International Space Station for different satellites. Okay. And next one is medium Earth orbit. And as I said, low Earth orbit is near to Earth actually. So that is the reason we call that as a low Earth orbit, LEO. Next, medium Earth orbit, above that. Basically or commonly this medium Earth orbit is used for navigation systems. Okay. and also it is for GPS purpose, global positioning system, to track something. That time some satellite can be put in MEO, that is medium earth orbit, which will be having the tracking of some ships, aircraft, wherever GPS is put, that is global positioning system is put. Through these satellites it can be controlled. So these are the uses of medium earth orbit. So next is geosynchronous orbit. So geosynchronous orbit, it is like you know how it is having the orbital speed, okay, which will match the Earth rotation. Okay, that means how your Earth is rotating, the same speed it is also rotating. Which one? Our geosynchronous orbit. If you are placing a satellite in this GSO or geosynchronous orbit, the satellite will remain in same place. But that means how your Earth rotates, this also starts rotating with same speed. The speed of this geosynchronous orbital speed is same as our Earth rotation speed. That means what? It will have a consisting, like a consistent position on a particular place. If you are watching on India, it will remain on India only. Okay, because how Earth rotates, this orbital speed also, the satellite also will rotate. The speed of both orbital speed and your Earth rotation speed, both are matching. So to look at only at one place or with having the consistent position, then we can go for GSO. Okay. So next, what is geostationary orbit? Actually, this geostationary orbit is like it will match the planet's rotation. The orbital speed of your geostationary will match the planet rotation, but it is only for Earth equator. Okay, it is only for Earth equator. That is the difference between these two, and both can be used for fixed position. It will not change in the sky. Both are having the fixed position in the sky. So now this GSO and GEO are used for telecommunication and Earth observation. As I said, no, like these also used for telecommunication purpose as well as Earth observations. If you don't use these, like orbits for looking at one place, what will happen? Instead of using your GSO or GEO, if you use this or that, what will happen? You will lose the control over the place. Okay, because the orbital speed is different from Earth speed or the rotation speed. So to have a proper look or consistent look on particular place, then we have to go for GSO and GEO. So next, polar orbit. So this is the this orbit is within 30 degrees of the Earth poles. Basically, it is 30 degrees of Earth poles. These are used. That is polar orbit, and basically they are for reconnaissance and weather tracking purpose they can use. Weather tracking purpose they can use, and measuring the atmospheric conditions. How it is the atmospheric condition, that also can be seen through this polar orbit, and long-term Earth observation. So these are the applications of polar orbit. Next, sun synchronous orbit. This is like one kind of or one type of polar orbit, that is sun synchronous orbit. So now this SSO or sun synchronous objects are synchronous with the sun, such that they pass over an Earth region at same local time every day. It's like a sun. Today sun is coming at 12 o'clock here, and after afternoon some evening 4 o'clock sometime he will come. He will come and go, like he will be rising in the east and he will be going down in the west. Daily he is coming. So similarly here also this HSO satellites which are put in the sun synchronous orbit will be coming to the local place at local time every day. Time will remain same. It will come and it will go like that. Okay, it's like sun. Next, highly elliptical orbits. So these orbits are like this. Suppose this is the Earth, orbit is this way. Somewhere it is near to the Earth and somewhere it is away from the Earth. So it will be in the form of elliptical shape, and here one end will be near to the Earth and other will be at the more distance. So now these are suited for communication purpose, satellite radio, remote sensing and other applications. So these are the different types of orbits and their applications we have seen. So now after this some more topics are there, that is some technical definitions. Okay, what is specific impulse and specific thrust? Okay, why? Because we are using the fuel in the rocket engine or in the aircraft. Okay, but now here we need to find out what is like how much amount of thrust is produced. Okay, if it is producing more or less, if it is producing for unit amount of time, what you are going to call it. Okay, so based on that we have certain definitions. The first one is called as specific impulse. So now specific impulse definition is what? The thrust produced per unit rate of consumption of the propellant. Okay, the thrust is produced per unit rate of consumption of the propellant. Let us say you are consuming 10 gram of propellant, then what is the amount of thrust is produced? So that is called as specific impulse. So amount of thrust produced per unit rate of fuel consumption or propellant that going to consume. Okay, so this can be used in terms of pounds. That means thrust per pound of the propellant used. Second or next definition is specific thrust. Here the specific thrust means it is a thrust per unit air mass flow rate of a jet engine. Actually this specific thrust is for jet engine, air jet engine. Okay, that means what? The specific thrust is what? The thrust produced per unit amount of air mass flow rate of a jet engine. So basically specific thrust can be measured for supersonic speeds and hypersonic speeds. And next one is thrust specific fuel consumption. Thrust specific fuel consumption. That means the fuel efficiency of an engine design with respect to the thrust output. Okay, so you are designing a engine and how much of fuel you are going to consume and what is the amount of thrust you are going to produce. So due to that, what is the fuel efficiency you are going to get it. So that will tell us thrust specific fuel consumption. So we can tell that as the definition as like this: thrust specific fuel consumption or TSFC is the fuel efficiency of an engine designed with respect to thrust output. Basically you are going to find out the fuel efficiency. You are having the good fuel efficiency, then you have got a good engine, otherwise no use. That means what? Best TSFC, best engine. Bad TSFC, not that much good engine we can say. Basically our aim is to save the fuel. So these are the some definitions which are there in our syllabus. And one more topic is there, that is assisted takeoff. Last topic is there, that is assisted takeoff. What do you mean by assisted takeoff? For an example, I have got a huge engine, okay, which I cannot lift for myself. Then we need some assistance to take off. Yes or no? So that is the reason what will happen. At that time, we need to have take the help of assisted takeoff. For an example, you take like a missile is there, which is attached to the aircraft. So if you launch without certain speed, okay, what will happen? it will not go further. Yes or no? So due to that, what will happen? The aircraft will carry that missile with some distance, then again it will launch after gaining the speed. So for better understanding the assisted takeoff, I will explain in terms of ramjet now. Okay, just now we will keep everything aside, that rocket engine. Only for this particular topic, I will take the example of ramjet engine. Okay, ramjet engine is fitted in aircraft, small aircraft, and it is not having any movable parts inside. That means you are not able to compress the airflow by itself. There is no compressor, there is no turbine in ramjet. So, but still it will work. When you are gaining the high compressed air inside, but how to get that air? It is not capable of flying itself. At that time, another aircraft will take that. I think you might have seen some aircraft are having small aircraft above that. Okay? So what will happen? First, the main aircraft will go with high speed. When it is moving, the high pressurized air or high amount of air will be coming in front of it. And then that air will enter into the ramjet engine, where it is equipped in the small aircraft. So due to that, there will be a ram effect which will create the high compressed air, and that will go inside the combustion